A mom-and-pop shop got hacked through a keylogger on the owner's laptop. The attack used real credentials to send fully authenticated malicious emails. So from the inbox side, this didn't look at all like a random scam from the outside. It looked exactly like the business. And nobody knew until their inbox placement scores started to tank. And that's what we're getting into today. Email security, deliverability, AI spoofing, all stepping on each other's shoes. Today, it is all about how to protect your business email without killing your deliverability. And for that, we're doing it with Lori Beth Blair, an email product expert that you're going to love. We also made a downloadable cheat sheet with the key tips, checks, and takeaways from the episodes, so go and check the link in the comments. My name is Marcus, and this is Subject Line Blank. Hello and welcome, Lori Beth. It's a total pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcos. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too, because we do have a few things to go through. If you're watching this, we're really going to try to cover as much as you can. You already know about Lori Beth's superpowers, so we're going to try to dig into things that are actually useful for you. And I love the way we started with this question, because we wanted to let people know that Lori Beth has not sent millions of emails per month. We're talking about billions of emails per month for small companies, medium companies, Fortune 100. I mean, she's seen it all. And because of that is that we're going to jump into the deliverability issue, so which is sort of what we all care about. It's like our email lands on the inbox. So with that, Lori Beth, how can we debunk some of the weirdest myth or the things that people believe that deliverability is or not, or what is affecting it? I mean, give us a little bit of your experience here.
Yeah, so I think, the myth used to be, as long as I collect, opt-in consent for people, I can email them and my deliverability will be fine. To be really honest, the new myth that I'm seeing is that as long as I send my email to folks that are interested, my deliverability will be fine. That is less true than it used to be. Maybe not all the way to a level of a myth, but the reason I say that is content has become incredibly important in spam filtering. So you can do everything right when it comes to list acquisition, when it comes to setting up your ESP, your authentication, all of that can be great. But if your HTML files are oversized or contain a ton of errors in the code, if your images are oversized, overweight, if you're not putting alt text for accessibility, and honestly, probably even AI to read the images, right? If you're not taking extreme care with your content construction, if you write something that maybe looks too close to what scammers talk about, there are a bunch of ways that your content can land your messages in spam. And a lot of people aren't even aware of it. So I would say, email's gotten incredibly complicated, to be really honest. It requires some deep IT skills when it comes to setting up DMARC. It takes a lot of expertise when it comes to, if you're having to hand code your HTML content. HTML for email is very different than HTML for web. So if you're not building, and even the way you design your images and the layout, you can't just take your print flyer and slap it in an email anymore. Even if you chop it up and convert it into an HTML design, I am seeing a lot of those senders who've done everything else right land in spam.
And it's, that's something that, being from the sales side, like I come from sales as well, it's just, we used to just grab any HTML builder, slap a few things in there, and just make sure that the subject line is good. And you were praying for the best. So what do you think is the biggest sort of influence on things changing that much?
I think AI is a huge influence, to be really honest. I think AI has allowed for far more efficient analysis of email content.
Do you think it's doing a favor in any way, or are we just seeing that it's going to affect things for the worst? I mean,
No.
A lot of people really think not too good about AI in general.
a lot of people have a lot of complaints. What I will say is this: I think when it comes to spam filtering, honestly, when a spam filter, I think it's hard to tell because when a spam filter is doing its job well, you don't notice it. You don't notice any email missing. Everything you want to land in your inbox lands in your inbox. Everything that you want to land in spam lands in spam. So when a spam filter is doing its job well, it's probably pretty thankless because people just don't even notice. I would say this. I think that it's perhaps a necessary evolution AI filtering is probably a necessary evolution to combat AI generated spam and leverage spam. And I think, I think when used, I think AI, like many technologies, I think it's inherently neutral. I think it's about how you use it. So, right, and I think technological advancement, that is our manifest destiny as a human species, right? Like, we are going to continue advancing technology. It just like grass is going to keep growing, and all of that. I don't think there's any stopping it. So I think it's about trying to figure out how to leverage it most effectively to combat the ills and the harms being created by AI, as well as, hopefully improve the quality of life for folks. Make sure people we have less false positives and less false negatives in the spam filter. So I'll say, I do think that one of the things I've seen recently, especially Gmail, they're probably one of the AI leaders in their spam filtering. I've certainly seen that reputation issues seem a little bit more difficult to unstick in the last couple of years. And I also think email reputations, like your IP, your domain, etc., I think they're a little bit more subject to entropy, i.e., if you are not actively maintaining it, it is degrading. So I do think that there's, at least your volume capacity, right? Like, I do think that overall, I think the jury may still be out on whether it's a net negative or a net positive. Certainly, with the volume of spam that Google quotes that they receive, it's something like, think about every email you get in a day. I believe Google is blocking like 9x that or more. In terms of like spam messages, either outright blocking or throwing into the spam folder. They've said really something like over 90% of attempts to email their users are spam. I think we need the resources that AI can bring to bear to combat some of that, especially since one of the biggest things, and we'll probably touch on this, in depth, is the rise of abuse of a legitimate infrastructure. Like now, I want to say there was a statistic I saw that said something like 48% of all spam now is coming out of Google and Microsoft's infrastructure. Or at least like free mail, either free mail or like low-cost mailbox corporate inboxes.
One of the things that I always sort of think of is we have email infrastructure, we have ways to send our stuff, but most people don't really look at the sort of the tech part behind, right? Because the tech part can fix a lot of the problems that we have with AI or with deliverability in general. So I wanted to look a little bit on the tech side of it, because we talk about DMARC a little bit, and this is something you know very well. And most companies don't even use it, don't set it up, or don't even know what it is. So can we dig in a little bit on how DMARC is really shaping the deliverability of email in companies?
Yeah, certainly. What I will say is I've definitely, it was mandated mid 2024. We've seen enforcement escalating at Gmail, Yahoo, and Hotmail. Frankly, honestly, Microsoft Hotmail has had the strongest stance, even though they were actually the last ones to announce that they were going to enforce DMARC. Based on the bounces I was seeing, even before they announced, they already had the strongest posture. I saw basically, I actually helped out my fraternity, as they're not a super large scale sender, just emailing like alumni and active brothers. And, we actually their list is actually below the threshold, that was quoted of 5,000 a day. But one of the really interesting things that was stated on one of the early webinars was you can be identified as a bulk sender below that threshold, like if you're sending templated emails, things like that, right? And if you're using a bulk platform, which they were, and they hadn't set up DMARC, and I was able to get that set up for them really quickly, and it resolved their issue pretty much overnight because they were a very small scale sender, very low risk, sending to known contacts, people with a high degree of affiliation. So but yes, I think, I definitely seen DMARC enforcement ramping up, because really DMARC, and I've been doing DMARC implementation since like 2017. And I've helped government agencies meet the requirement when I was working for ESPs. I've helped, companies of all sizes meet these DMARC requirements long before they were ever required, because it is the anti-spoofing protection on your domain. It is how you control which services are allowed to use your domain for email and definitively represent you, your domain in the email channel, or any of its subdomains. Because, typically you set your DMARC policy on your parent domain, and then it covers all potential subdomains underneath it. Because otherwise, if it didn't, a malicious actor could just smash their fingers on the keyboard, make up a subdomain, and start spoofing you, which I've seen in DMARC reporting. I've seen literally just keyboard smash subdomains that a spoofer was trying to get through, and it didn't work. And that's the other thing, the DMARC reporting information that you get back. I mean, you got to route this into a tool to parse it, for sure, because otherwise it's almost unusable. It comes in, you're going to get a bunch of XML reports from literally everyone you've sent email to. Google, I've seen, will even send multiple per day. It's not really human readable, and you need to collate it all together. And when you do that, you get a really powerful map of every way your business uses email, uses your domain in the email channel. You can see every system that's sending on behalf of it, roughly the volume that's being sent, etc. So, honestly, it's a pretty deep IT function. That's why, my advice to marketers when this was coming out is make friends with your IT team, because they've got to be involved now. If you don't set up authentication, it's not going to work. And that's why I honestly saw, a real rise before, I've seen a real rise in people trying to go to ESPs that offer shared sending domains, because they don't want to go through that knife fight with the IT team. And though I think I've seen, I think those are going to become somewhat challenging to use in the near future. Those shared domains where maybe they set you up your own subdomain. I know there's some really popular ESPs that let their customers send from a shared subdomain even. And I think that's going to get more difficult, because the whole point of everything Google kind of required in mid 2024, and Yahoo and everyone as well, is about identity. And if you're using a shared subdomain, you're sharing your identity. And really, if you're a bulk sender, these mailbox providers, spam filters, they want you to clearly and cleanly identify your business based on your domain. I've been advising people, this needs to be tied to your website domain. With all the information coming out of Google's antitrust cases, you have got to be crazy if you don't think Google is consuming some portion of their SEO data in the spam filter. I have a personal suspicion, pure speculation here, that Google has some kind of probably magic ratio of email traffic to web visits. And if you violate that ratio, it looks weird and they start scrutinizing you. And I always kind of tell people, email marketing can be as simple as keeping all of your ratios within acceptable ranges, right? Is your open rate in an acceptable range? Your click rate, your unsubscribe rate, your bounce rate, your spam complaint rate, all of that, right? You just keep those in an acceptable range, and generally you're going to be fine. And so I think that's, really that's part of where identity comes down to it. They want to be able to identify you. They want to be able to check, what ranges are you in? And I think once you get outside of those ranges, you start to get more scrutiny. And as I always tell people, the more questions the spam filter asks about your mail traffic, the worse it's probably going to go for you. Because spam filters are biased towards finding mail to be spam. Because based on the data, statistically, that what I was saying earlier, Google says like at least 9 out of 10 attempts to email their users are spam. The spam filter is not wrong.
That's true. And but when you set up, you set up a few of these things for not only for companies, for like people that you work with. Is this really something that you have to just, all right, well, let's make sure we set it up once and then we forget about it, right? Or this is something that keeps evolving and you need to go and check every so and so what's going on with your setups, with your tech setup?
So yeah, there's definitely should be a setup process. Here's my personal one. For smaller brands, for larger brands, you need to extend the timeline. But what I will say is I set it up in a none policy with a reporting service routing it with the data all routing into reporting service. And I monitor that for at least 45 days because I have a horror story. Experience is our best and often most painful teacher. I had a client that came to me, the marketing team. They hit me up on Upwork back when I was a baby consultant, I think in like 2018, 2019, whatever, right? And they hit me up and they're like, hey, our marketing, our IT team put DMARC on reject. Now all our mail is bouncing. Please help. They hadn't set up custom DKIM. I helped them set up custom DKIM. No problem. Problem solved. Everything taken care of. And I was doing just a lot of kind of churn and burn jobs, like quick DNS work. That's how I got my start in consulting. So did that. Didn't think I'd hear from him again. Problem solved, right? Well, they hit me up like 2 weeks later. I'm like, hey folks, what's up? I thought everything was okay. And they're like, yeah, we're fine. Accounting, however, has a massive headache. When the IT team just slapped DMARC straight to reject, they hadn't audited any, and I don't even think they had a reporting system. They had not audited all of the mail systems the company used. The accounting system, NetSuite, was using their domain. It had not set up custom DKIM or return path for SPF authentication and alignment. Almost all of their invoices bounced. 50% of customers did not pay their bills that month. And this was for like a dental medical kind of supply company that was like supplying, dentists with things like drill bits and everything they need for their office. So they did like these monthly billing in arrears. That was very painful for the company's cash flows to suddenly be missing like 50% of their revenue and then have to go back and like untangle who got the email, who didn't. Like, it was just a nightmare. So no, you cannot just set and forget DMARC. You always need to be monitoring it. Also, I've had a couple of incidents where up to and including my employer, which was a DMARC tool, started getting spoofed. And it was to the tune of like 50% of their volume. I mean, personally, I just like digging through DMARC reports. I do it on an almost daily basis. However, what I can say is if you don't want to do that, pretty much every DMARC tool out there is going to have great alerting options to let you know if your compliance percentage drops. Because in general, I tell most bulk consumer senders, if you're at like 99% compliance and above, you're fine. And this is if your list is at least like 100,000 or so. Below that, your compliance percentage might dip because there are always going to be forwards and things like that that break DMARC authentication, etc. Now, what I will say, I've been participating in the DKIM2 working group. There is a solution coming for that. It's not in the wild quite yet. I think it's pretty rapidly going to be there, though. I think they're aiming for Q4 to have at least one service up and running with it. So I think that's really going to help some of that. For B2B senders, I tell people generally 98% compliance and above. If you're a large scale sender, maybe 97% and above. It depends. You might have some IT systems that are like forwarding mail like internally, but you can look at your DMARC reporting. But I mean, the thing is, you've got to have, as long as you have a reporting system with alerting, that's about as close as you can get to set and forget. But you want to make sure you're aware if somebody starts spoofing you. And then if you have all that data, I've had to do takedown requests. I've taken down a spoofer that was spoofing one of my theme park customers to the tune of like 10 million a day, which pretty exactly matched their actual sending volume. It was like they doubled it. I saw a couple of those attacks in like rapid succession where it was like the malicious actor knew roughly how much they were sending. And yeah, one of them was at Amazon Web Services. This is before AWS actually locked down port 25 and 487, I think. Those are the two email ports. The SMTP and the SMTP Secure, those have since been locked down. You have to petition Amazon to unlock those. But yeah, they were, I just wrote up a packet of data with the DMARC data that I had, and, proving that the customer was being spoofed. The customer made an attestation that it was not them, and Amazon took it offline in 36 hours. I've had a similar experience with GoDaddy. I had a customer I was doing an audit for, and a spoof, a GoDaddy IP started sending on behalf of them. And it wasn't even a GoDaddy email IP, it was like a server IP. Turns out it was a compromised account. So I got all the info that I needed, sent it to them, and they were able to take it offline in, I think 36 to 48 hours, pretty quick. And just, if you have DMARC, your reputation should be shielded. But I personally like to, if it's North American based, or, at least friendly ISPs and services, I like to reach out and try and take it down. And I found all the abuse departments, they're generally really happy to receive those reports, along with the credible packet of evidence.
But that's important what you mentioned of you need to look, you need to know where to look, and you need to look every so and so, because otherwise, you might not even notice, right? You knew exactly, especially reading the reports and stuff is something that most companies and most people don't do. At least they come to you when they have something wrong.
Yeah.
Now, a big thing that you mentioned there is the abuse of all of these things. So this is cybersecurity, and this is what I perfect to introduce a cybersecurity layer on this. People see deliverability problems, of course, but there is a line between that and security problems, right? There's something in between, but the more and more, just like I mentioned, the more and more this is getting blurred. Can you take us through what's happening here? How cybersecurity is affecting something as important as deliverability?
Oh yeah, I always tell folks your deliverability is subject to your cybersecurity. If your cybers are not secure, you're probably going to have a bad time with your email reputation, because the number one thing every spam filter, think what is the goal of a spam filter? You want to make sure users have a good experience in the email channel. One of the best ways to have a bad experience is to get hacked, to get phished, to get scammed in some kind of way, to get malware on your machine. So if what we're seeing a lot of right now is those compromised accounts. It's the age-old saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So it can be as simple as a single user's account getting compromised at a service. Maybe they can leverage some other malicious actions to get permission escalations, and then boom, they're an admin or whatever, and they're able to email, fully authenticated emails out of a user's account. Or if they can't do that, maybe they spoof another domain out, but use that infrastructure. They abuse the infrastructure that they've compromised. So and the thing is, if you get tangled up in that, I've actually had a couple of cases in the past couple of years where it was a website compromise. Malicious actor, honestly, compromised WordPress plugins. That's hard to say. Compromised WordPress plugins. And supply chain attacks, basically. So the website gets compromised. Well, what are you doing in the majority of your emails? Linking to your website. So if the outlinks to the website lead to a site with malware on it, most spam filters are going to block that, or at least put it in spam. And, in one of the cases, one of the attacks, the compromised plugin that was likely leveraged allowed the malicious actor to get the multi-factor authentication codes and just fully authenticate in as if they were an admin, logging in directly. And they, use some tactics to hide their code, and then redirect the website to malicious marketplaces. And then, in both cases, that's really what the attack was. In the other attack, a plugin provider had let one of their domains lapse, and a malicious actor bought it, brought it back online with the script that was supposed to be there, plus a little bonus fun that redirected the website to places that nominally, I guess, made them money. So in both of those cases, honestly, we figured it out with inbox placement testing. using tools like Mail Monitor, Inbox Monster, Validity, Glock apps, things like that, right? To look at where are we going to inbox, where are we going to spam. I was actually talking to somebody earlier today about the importance. They're like, does inbox placement testing really tell me anything? I'm like, oh yeah, it lets you know what the default, like, neutral kind of reputation is at the mailbox provider or spam filter, right? Your audience will always behave different because they have like Google especially really wants to create the spam filter that filters mail exactly how LB wants it, exactly how Marcos wants it, exactly how every individual wants it. So they use that data of from your interactions to customize how they filter for you, which means a newsletter that lands in my primary tab might go to your promo tab if I read every day and you read it maybe once a week. So that's really what we there's always going to be some variance, but basically those inbox placement tests, that's how we found a couple of those issues. They were blocked at we saw they were 100% spam filtered at a particular mailbox provider or spam filter. We reached out to them. They told us, hey, there's malware on your website. That's why we're blocking it. And we were able to kind of do a little back and forth and get the next step and then escalate it to a proper cybersecurity professional to clean up the website stuff. LB doesn't do that as much. I know some basic stuff. I've stopped a few basic web hacks, but if it gets, to advanced level tactics, I'm sending that to my partner.
Like calling the big guns, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But it's crazy the level of abuse that is getting like through email, because after all, email is everything, right? It's communication, it's memory, it's money handed in between. Ourselves, the Mailtrap, we just we created an email security course. It's a 101 course with over 30 lessons. It's going to be available on the website very soon, just because people needs it. It's something that we forget. That's the reason why we put together something for, and please, if you're listening to this, go and check our website and you will be able to see all of these little lessons for you to understand and how to protect yourself. But based on that too, I mean, you mentioned a few cases already, but what's sort of like the iconic case that calls your attention of like how this was really not only abused but successfully hacked and almost destroy a brand? Like, I'm sure you have a favorite case.
I do. It was not a very large scale sender. It was pretty early in my career. But it's a pretty simple hack that could happen to just about any of us. And I will say a lot of my knowledge in cybersecurity was due to getting compromised myself once. Honestly, last time I ever downloaded just a random file off the internet, to be very honest, I was trying to get a song I wanted. I think it was like a Tenacious D song. Well, it turned out it had a virus in it, nice. And it was a keylogger. Then I ended up having to learn how to edit registry keys in Windows to remove the malware from my own machine. But what I'll say, the canonical example I have is I had a mom and pop shop. They did training courses in a very limited area of the United States. And I was doing an audit for them and everything was fine until the day before. I went to update the DMARC information in the audit and saw a huge spike in send volume, way more. Like, it was equivalent to their total list size, but they like served like a tri-state area, so they never sent all of their contacts at once. And I was like, well, this looks odd. So I reached out to, and I looked at the IP address, and I'm like, well, hey, this is not your constant contact IP. This is like, and I looked at it was their website IP. So long story short, mom from the mom and pop shop had gotten a keylogger on her computer. What happened was I told him at the audit, I said, hey, you know what? This wasn't included. Yeah, I'll throw in a ticket to Google, for free once you tell me you've stopped the hack. They tell me like a day later they stopped it. I submit the ticket to Google. I present the audit. We think everything's good. And then everything starts to bounce at Gmail. And they contact me back to fix it. And this is a matter of days, not like weeks. So come to find out, mom had a keylogger on her computer, and basically what had happened, the malicious actor had just gotten the password to their web host, went into the web host. They had a plugin, WordPress plugin, that allowed them to mail from the website's A record IP fully authenticated emails and send really malicious content. Things like, the FBI is looking for you. I think this was back in like I think this is back before GDPR dropped and everybody cut off the forensic reports, which was how I was able to get a bit of the content and see what was going on. And really sketchy, malicious emails. Google did not find my second ticket after I'd actually stopped the hack very convincing. And honestly, you know what was so simple that stopped it? Multi-factor authentication. That was it. I said, have it send a text to yourself. And that kicked the actor out, because otherwise, every time she reset the password, they got right back in because of the keylogger. So that's why, device security, personal cybersecurity is so important for everyone, every single person in the company. It is incredibly important. I love that you guys are putting out educational content. Definitely will make sure to reshare, because education is absolutely one of the most important things we can do. And, one of the things that's honestly kind of difficult to talk about this, because I don't want to delve too deeply into tips, tactics, and procedures, because I don't want to give somebody the knowledge they need to start doing some dirt. Some of this I probably have talked about in a little bit vague terms. Keyloggers are pretty well known. But a lot of people don't even realize, my website could be sending email. And that's definitely, you want to be very careful about, if you're using a WordPress site, have the minimal amount of plugins necessary, regularly audit the plugins to see if you're still using them. Honestly, check the plugins as websites to make sure or the news to make sure there are no compromises active. There's kind of a lot you have to do to make sure that your website is secure, and so that your email can stay secure and deliverable.
And if you don't know how to, thanks God, we have people like you that they can actually help.
Yeah, there are plenty. I would say, and don't be afraid to reach out to an expert. There are plenty of great communities like Email Geeks where you can join the Slack and ask questions, and experts like me are on there every day, answering. Yes, if you want dedicated support and hand-holding, for sure, you're going to need to pay a professional for that, right? If you want me to do it for you, that costs money. If you just want some quick advice, myself and tons of other incredibly qualified people out there willing to give you advice for free. Reddit, Email Geeks, communities, things like that. Definitely leverages the resources that you can find if you're a small business. There's certainly LinkedIn. I'm honestly answering people's questions and such on there all the time. I give just about everyone a free 30 minutes.
I'm a witness. I've seen it. This is the part that I want to start moving to, because it's crazy the amount of tools that people find on or sort of scams or little things they can do in order to access someone's domain, someone's email account, someone's password. So this is the perfect time to bring our friend AI. So how AI is reshaping things, because we talk about AI is bringing this content filtering, and we already see it in our own emails. Gmail or whatever is giving you a little summary of the things that you're getting. And how is this shaping the way that we create content? Do we need to change certain things so AI really understands the gist of what we're trying to say, or really the core of our offers? How is that part of AI affecting email?
So I think this is going to be massive in the years to come. Honestly, I've stopped being astounded by the number of major brands that basically just send a print flyer as an email. They literally just copy paste whatever they sent into mailboxes or had laying out in the stores in email, and it's mostly images. Even the text is in image format, it's not live text. And in a world in which AI wants to read your email, unless you're putting incredibly verbose alt text in there, I think that it's probably going to hurt your reputation, because anything that the AI just can't look deeply enough inside, I think it's likely to deprioritize. And so I think that's why, one of the reasons they tell folks the canonical advice, don't send all image emails. Well, if you look behind that, the reason for that is sending all image emails was a tactic that malicious actors used to combat keyword filtering. So I think that, I also am very leery though of using AI generated images and video. Well, especially, I really wouldn't send video and email, but, AI generated documents, images, files, and things in email, because I'm pretty sure like the filter can detect that based on artifacts in the document headers. And then I think it's likely to deprioritize it somewhat, because I was at the Email Experts Deliverability Summit in Barcelona. It was absolutely amazing this year. And they had, I think it was Hornet Email Security up there presenting, who said that over 80% of the phishing attempts that they saw had AI generated content in them. So email's really interesting. Part of the reason I love email and filtering and deliverability is it's so dynamic. It is always changing, because the cybersecurity landscape is always changing. Because as I tell people, it's a pitched battlefield. Like, there are forces on either side in active combat, and the spam filter is always shifting to account for whatever the current tactics are. Like, it was really interesting when I was at Validity. I was there through COVID, and we saw initially they do this really great state of email webinar that I highly recommend, and they often have keyword clouds for like subject lines, right? Like which ones are getting the best open rates and things like that. And initially, anything mentioning COVID had a ton of interest, great open rates, things like that, great inbox placement. However, over time that shifted because so much scam and spam started up around protective equipment, PPE, personal protective equipment. So then it almost became like mentioned, and I think maybe there might have been some element of people also just getting sick of hearing about it, but that doesn't explain the filtering so much so quickly. And I think, it's so whatever topics are being filtered, some people say, oh, it's difficult to inbox crypto content, it's difficult to inbox cannabis content, this type of content, that type of content, spicy content, right? It's really dependent on what the current landscape of spam and scam is, and if what you're talking about is highly aligned with, or, highly aligned with how the scammers and spammers are talking about those kinds of things.
After all, I mean, if you think about it, the scammers, they will use your words, and then when you use their words, they think you're, so they all get mixed up, basically.
Well, yeah, I've heard one of the scarier things that I've kind of heard in the age of AI is the ability to like if they're able to get enough text and video content from like key executives at companies, they can pretty perfectly emulate their style of speaking, writing, and then use that in emails to try to convince employees to either, divulge, give them money, or at least help them in permission escalations, things like that, right? The old gift card scams. We've all gotten them. Boss needs gift cards or whatever. I think the funniest one I ever got was when I was working at Click Dimensions, and I got an email, and I was totally the wrong department. But I got an email asking for like PlayStation Network gift cards. I was like, I know this is not the CEO, because if it was Xbox, if they'd asked for Xbox Gold, I might have actually forwarded it to accounting. But it was PlayStation. I was like, I know we're not giving out PlayStation Network gift cards at no conference. Come on now. So that's, but that's it. Like scammers, that's the big difference between, scammers, spammers, spoofers. They're spraying and praying. They're trying to play the numbers game. Like, they just need it to work well enough. Like, they don't really, but that's the thing I was saying. Being good at email, maintaining your email reputation is really a matter of staying within the right ratios. So that's why, if your ratios are off, you're probably doing something the ecosystem doesn't want you to be doing.
And you're letting them decide.
Yeah, and well, they're going to. Because to be fair, the mailbox providers, those are their sandboxes. They don't have to let anything persist on their servers or even enter their servers that they do not wish to. This is not a governmental organization. You do not have a right to free speech into their inboxes. And the same with the spam folders. Yeah, it's their business. It's private property, effectively. So they can, let you in or kick you out at their leisure.
So you have to keep an eye, people, if you're listening to this. If your boss asks you for Fortnite V-Bucks, maybe it's not your boss. Maybe you should think about it twice. Yeah. And okay, just to sort of close that AI idea. So we see like how AI is being shaping many of the things and many sort of how easy certain attacks can become. But we always had tools, right? We had SPF and DMARC, we have DKM. So we had all of these tools set up from before AI was a problem. Now, are these tools still relevant or still doing their job, or are we going to have to find new things?
No, I think most of the tools are still relevant in doing their job. I think they might start falling in the category of what we call necessary but not sufficient. So there's like additional, but also many of these tools are also enhancing and evolving in the age of AI as well. I've seen some tools like kind of showing similar AI summaries of your emails, even using AI to summarize like email reporting and find variances. Like, honestly, when I'm doing deliverability investigations, a lot of what I'm doing is parsing through data sets, finding variances, and literally just playing spot the difference. And frankly, AI speeds that up a lot to help speed my time to insight so that I can resolve issues more quickly, which is super important in deliverability, because the longer an issue persists unresolved, the more cemented a bad reputation gets. And this is in part, I think, this is one of the more difficult parts that I would probably criticize of AI filtering is it's very subject to confirmation bias. So once the spam filter starts putting you in spam, if nobody pulls your email out of there, it is likely to continue doing that in like increasing amounts. So like I said, you send one email with a huge piece of content in it, that could create a spam filtering event that starts to drag like everything down. Because once they start putting some email in the spam filter, they might test increasing amounts and become, the spam filter's like, yeah, I put all that email in spam, nobody clicked it, pats itself on the back, and decides to do that to an increasing percentage the next time you send. So that's why I think it's incredibly important to be monitoring your email open rates by mailbox provider or spam filter, inbox placement, using an inbox placement testing tool, and all of those things. I think you do definitely need, in cybersecurity, we call it like defense in depth, right? Like we have multi-factor authentication. We have systems that look about, is LB logging in from a location that she usually is not present in, right? Like, did she submit a travel plan to IT to let them know she's going to Barcelona to speak at the Deliverability Summit? And so really you need this kind of like defense in depth. I think the same thing, you need reporting in depth for deliverability. You need to look at it from a variety of different angles, because ultimately spam filters inherently are black boxes, and they have to be. Because if they told everyone what the rules exactly were, malicious actors would take one tiny little step right inside the line and do as much dirt as possible, or find ways to, compromise the filters, right? So due to the fact that, filters are black boxes, you need a fair amount of tooling, especially if you're a billion plus a month sender, or if you're even shipping millions and hundreds of thousands. You need, tooling that can monitor how that's actually going. And some ESPs are better or worse at like having all of that in the platform. So like at Sendex, for example, where I've been advising them on product development, we put, inbox placement right in the tool, email hygiene. And there are plenty of other platforms that do at least, some of that as well. So we're really, trying to put everything all in one place. I think it's really important to have a variety of tools that let you know how things are doing. And I kind of, that's why I tell people, I always need the best, like kind of 2 out of 3 sources to know anything for sure. Is, do I have a problem or not? I need to consult at least 2 sources, and they need to confirm, yes, there's a problem. So if I look at like, if I go in your email platform and I go, Gmail open rate slow, and I do an inbox placement test that says, everything's landing in spam, that's 2 sources. I'm convinced you have a problem. Or I look at your Google Postmaster tools and you have a low open rate. That's enough for me to go, yep, you got a problem. And then the real process, because that's the other thing. Part of the reason you need the tooling, and part of the reason you need the tooling online before, when you don't have a problem, is there is no way to generate that comparative body of data of, well, what did the diagnostics look like when everything was going just fine? And how can I compare, now that I've seen a change from my baseline performance, how can I compare that to what I looked like when everything was fine? So that's really the big thing, is you need that body of data. The answer is always in the data when it comes to deliverability problems. And I'll also give everyone hope in that I've pretty much never come across a deliverability problem that is unsolvable. They're all solvable. It's a question of, the amount of time and effort it's going to take to recover it. And sometimes, like in that case I was talking about earlier, unfortunately, when I submitted that second ticket to Google for mom and pop, they did not find that outreach as credible, and they were hard blocked from Google for 4 months. We actually just started a program of we would test every 2 weeks. Could they get an email through, or did it get bounced? And once we started seeing that they were able to get through and they got some inbox placement, we were able to warm them back up again. But they ended up hard blocked for 4 months.
That's a big blow for especially when you're talking about small companies. I mean, you can't afford to do that.
Yeah, it was rough. They ended up having to go and use their Cox.net corporate account address to send to all their Gmail contacts for those 4 months. It was a ton of labor to do so.
I can imagine. So I'm not gonna ask you, because I mean the amount of tips and things that if you're paying attention, that you literally have a whole seminar of how to do email right. So what I want to close this conversation with is just sort of the vision that you have for the future of email. Like I said before, for me, email is everywhere and is everything for a business. But how do you see this is going to keep shaping forward? Is email going to be still relevant for sales? Is it going to be relevant for communications? How do you see it coming up?
So I think email is always going to be relevant because it's basically the hub of our digital existence. It's where a lot of multi-factor authentication codes go. It's where a lot of account alerts go. And also, one thing that's super important about email that I think a lot of people don't realize is that's a very well provable forensic chain of custody, thanks to things like DKIM signing, that let you trace a message and its provenance and chain of custody all the way through. So email is not going anywhere. I think it's always going to be an important sales and marketing channel as well. So I think, definitely it's gotten a lot harder in the last couple of years. I think tools are catching up to making it a bit easier again and dealing with the host of concerns that have arisen from this. So I think we are getting more sophisticated. It's kind of like, just about anything. Whenever a platform makes a change, or when an ecosystem makes a fundamental change, there's going to be a little bit of lead time for everybody to catch back up with it. So I think, really, email's not going anywhere. And I think, at a worst case scenario, businesses are going to have to look at it as a necessary evil. Or, I think it's an opportunity. I think if you can be good at email in a world of people that are struggling with it, that's a massive competitive advantage. And again, I actually don't think it's, that hard. Just make sure, your employee and website cybersecurity are, and your email sending platform cybersecurity are really well hardened. And frankly, a lot of the advice, I actually did a presentation that was specifically about how to secure your email channel that even went into, making sure that your email form submissions are secured against robotic submissions, everything down to making sure, your web hosting has multi-factor authentication set up on it, or, all your critical logins. But basically, you need a solid basis of company cybersecurity, regardless of your size. Because this is the other scary thing I've seen. Hacking has been pushed down to much smaller businesses. Do not make the mistake of thinking you are too small to hack. Because I've seen incredibly small, I had a copywriter who got targeted for compromise. They came in through her web form, saying, hey, we're interested in your services. They sent her a prospectus via PDF that was supposed to explain what they wanted, but also contained a cracked browser plugin. And the thing is, she was probably not the actual target, like her finances or anything like that. Likely a client of hers. So never think you are too small to be hackable, worth hacking. Hacking's gotten very stratified. Maybe, the Kevin Mitnicks, rest in peace, of the world wouldn't be coming after you. And I know he ultimately went white hat. But Kevin Mitnick was once regarded as the best hacker in the world. And, so those folks might not be coming after you. They're going after the megacorps. But everybody else, all the smaller, the little baby malicious actors that are like growing up in the space, they got to cut their teeth somewhere. So, really seeing that happen. So I think if you get your cybersecurity, to a sufficient level, and I also tell people, they'll say, oh, CAPTCHA's crackable. That may be true. You don't always have to outrun everyone. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun a few other people, right? You just need to not be the easiest prey on the block. Now, that being said, certain industries are higher risk. If you're in financial, you're probably going to be more likely a target. Medical, dental, actually. I heard dentists are becoming huge targets because, the dental records are great for identity theft, apparently. Wow. Yeah, no, it's wild. Like, I really, I have a hard time doing what my cybersecurity mentor and cybersecurity partner, Cam or Kevin A. McGrail, always says, which is think evil. It's good to put your evil hat on and try to think evil like a malicious actor so you can protect yourself against what they might do. Unfortunately, I'm not great at it. But I have awesome folks that I make sure to read up a lot on what the malicious actors are doing, since I know that's a weakness I have. And yeah, like you've just got to have that solid basis. And then really beyond that, keep your email at acceptable, keep your metrics in acceptable ratios. Try to keep your open rate 30% and above. Try to keep your click rate 1% and above. Though I've seen that one's kind of the most fudgeable. Try to keep your bounce rate below 1%. Try to keep your unsubscribe rate below 0.4%. Try to keep your complaint rate below 0.1%. If you keep all of your, email inside of acceptable ratios, generally you're probably going to be okay. And email can become a real competitive strength for your business. And once you see something start to dip, you don't want to engage in a knee-jerk reaction. It could just be a bad campaign, could just be a bad day in email. But once you see a few data points, 2 out of 3 at least, telling you there's a problem, it's time for further investigation. And that's when all the deliverability tooling you might have set up really comes into play, or, your ESP's historical reporting, all of that, very important.
And if you're listening to this and you don't know exactly where to start, I want to invite you to follow Lori Beth Blair on LinkedIn. The amount of stuff we keep learning, and it's not only the stuff that we learn, it's like she is super cool to follow too. All of her content is amazing. So do that. Also, make sure you go to Mailtrap's website to check the email security course 101 that we are putting out for you. And if you learn anything today, and if you enjoy the episode, make sure you subscribe, push that notification button, do the stuff that you have to do online. And I want to thank you so much, Laura Beth. This was I didn't really. I have more questions because a lot of all these things are not just new, but they keep changing. So you something that you knew for sure yesterday is not true anymore. So thank you so much for giving us all of this information. And again, you're welcome to come and visit us anytime.
Awesome. No, this is a great time. Great questions. Some of the best, great walkthrough on questions. And I'm super happy to be here and really excited to see that email security course, because I think it's just so important that folks educate themselves. That's absolutely, and keep re-educating themselves, because like you said, it's always changing. That's part of what we love about it, but that's also part of what makes it frustrating.
Yep. Story of our life. Anyways, yes. Laura, thank you one more time.
Have a great one.
And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.